Well, hello. Welcome to episode 3 of the One Life Church podcast. One Life Church. We are a church in Evansville, Indiana, and Henderson, Kentucky. We are one church in 3 locations. And honestly, we just wanted to start a podcast to have some conversations together and continue the conversations from our Sunday mornings, and also just be able to talk about some behind the scenes. Sometimes those conversations don't really get to happen, and being able to talk about them in this platform is a little bit different. So today we get to talk some more of our staff, and to my left I have Natalie Jaranowski. She is our executive director of One Life Network, which basically means she's in charge of everything. Yeah.
True story.
Yeah. And then opposite her on the other end of the table, we have our lead media producer, Thomas Bernardin.
Hi.
Yeah, you have
That's
to talk on a podcast.
I guess. Yeah.
Supposed to wave at the camera?
Yeah.
No.
I didn't wave. Do we need to start over?
No, let's just keep going.
I
like it.
We're good. I only did because I'm the media producer.
That's true. He only thinks in video usually. So
yeah, this will be new.
Pretty much
I'm happy to be here.
Most of the quality productions that you've seen at One Life have in the last 2-3 years have come from Thomas.
Almost 3 years. Mm-hmm.
His creativity, and we really enjoy. I mean, I get to work with him pretty much every day, and most of the time I really enjoy it. So all the time.
I think we should talk about the times that you don't.
Most of the
that
time.
would be interesting.
Yeah. That would be interesting. You never know. And then we have our lead pastor, Bret Nicholson, will kind of be leading some of the conversation and continuing to talk about some of the things that he got to kind of teach us a little bit on Sunday and continue that. And we want to ask him some questions, but also see if there's anything that you didn't really get to that you want to continue talking about. So I guess first we talked about a couple different things, kind of how we ended the message yesterday and the response to that. Kind of what do we think people are talking about? What are people taking away from that? And I don't know if, Natalie, you had any feedback of something you think people might be walking away with.
Well, I liked the response time at the end where you challenge people. What is a relationship that you have? Kind of that challenge that you need to mend that, or you need to do one thing. What's one action you could take? So
yeah, because
that was good.
It's a personal thing. Everybody probably has something like that, I would assume. I mean, maybe you're thinking of someone right now.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe you are. I know I am. It was a challenge to come up with those things and then do them for myself. I honestly try to do that. Just think, okay, if I'm going to have people do this, I probably ought to go ahead and participate in it as well. And it was getting to the idea of, it says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. And brotherly love is one of those things that if you have siblings, it drifts back and forth, typically. I mean, there's sort of, some people are very, very close for their brothers and sisters, and they have to think about that. But others in a family, you kind of ebb and flow in terms of your relationship. And I think that's one of the things it's getting at. Like, do I have to go after this relationship a little bit more intentionally than I have been because I've let it drift? But the good thing about it, it's there, it's present as a relationship. So that was kind of the concept that we did. Was that the same for you, Thomas? Or is that one of the takeaways, or were you just so involved in the media side of this that you weren't even paying any attention? You can be honest.
Well, I do have to be completely honest.
I look forward to this, actually.
And I hope this is okay.
Did you notice he looked at me when he said that?
He's shifting to the ones that's in charge of everything.
Gold stars may be at risk.
This is a very odd day for me to be here because I actually was not at service yesterday because my youngest sister got married this weekend, and so on Saturday have it be, and so it was
in Nashville.
No, here in Evansville.
Oh, it was in Evansville?
Yeah, but it was just a very busy weekend, and so the family and I decided we're gonna kind of stay back and recover. But not recover.
We
didn't do anything.
This would
crazy.
be the first week that I make edits to the podcast.
Oh no!
Wow.
But remembering from our Thursday recording, I mean that so I have heard the message, and that being a takeaway, that the brotherly love thing was very. Was impactful to me in the story of the concert, which I'm sure you'll talk about at some point in time as well. So.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, but I appreciate your honesty, and we look forward to thinking about that in the next evaluation. That's
I hope I have a special meeting with
because he has his immediate supervisor here, her
me.
supervisor, and then
I don't want the word to get out that somebody be like, hey, I didn't see Thomas at church, so.
Right, no, that's good.
So to be clear, you were in town, but made the choice not to come to church because you were recovering.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
There you go. That's good. Yeah. Then
That's good.
Not
because one of the things we said, interestingly enough, was that you can
Stop.
You don't have to be a part of a church to be a Christian, but you do have to be a part of a church to live like
Yes.
one. And so,
Yes.
so that day you weren't living like one.
Oh no, I was.
And I guess that would be one of my questions. So I threw that out
Digging
there.
myself a hole.
Yeah,
here.
you really are.
It's not like what
You are
it
digging
sounds.
a hole.
It was all.
You
good.
just danced
It's all
too
good.
much.
See, people wanted
Yes,
to.
I did.
If you want a glimpse into the behind the scenes, you just got it, and so we could turn this
Sure.
into
Yeah,
just
life
a
and-
real journey of what's Thomas's fate, and we'll get to watch it
I
unfold.
don't know. We'll see.
Right
This
here
has
in front
turned
of
There
us.
into
will
a
be
reality
meetings
show.
after this podcast where
To a reality show.
we'll see.
No, the question is, I think I made that statement, and I've thought a lot about it. It wasn't just kind of meant to be trite, and I wasn't first trying to do something that I thought would be tweetable or whatever else. It was just I do try to find ways of simplifying a statement, and so you don't have to be part of a church to be a Christian, but you do have to be part of a church to live like one. I do personally believe that's quite accurate based on the New Testament, but any responses or reactions to that in people's lives, and what do you think people out there in general would say to that, and why would they push back or be great fans?
Well, when you say that, I immediately think about patience. It's so easy for me to read the Bible and say that I need to be patient with people and I need to be loving and all that. It's super easy for me to be patient with people when there's no people around me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But there's nothing like the church context when you're thrown together with all kinds of different people who maybe in your work or school or whatever you do, you're not with those types of people. But that's the beauty of being in a church is all kinds of people come. And you do have to exercise patience because there may be people who get on your nerves.
Yeah.
Not that there's any at our church, mind you.
Of course. Yeah.
No.
Well, once upon a time, I remember calling, this sounds really weird to say, but I called church the school of love, which is probably not.
That's
but
good, yeah.
But the point being, that could be taken a lot of different ways. But the point is that, to your point, that anybody can think of themselves as a loving person and say, I just want to love people. But it's not until you actually are with them and in life with them that you get that kind of thing tested or just challenged in any way. And I think that's one of the reasons that God did come up with the local church as a fundamental concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny though when you said that, I over my journey of being a Christian, I have heard people say, I've heard that exact phrase, said from people that I've crossed paths with of, we're, maybe, we're not going to church or we're not in a church right now, but we're kind of, just like really focusing on scriptures on our own or doing this on our own or whatnot. And it is an interesting thing because, to Natalie's point, you need someone to push you. You need someone to call, I don't really call myself out on things very often, but other people do, so it's like if I'm
they just did.
Like,
It's a frequent thing around
Yeah.
the office.
Concert.
One of the most honest conversations we really get to have here is with Thomas all the time.
But we need that though. We need,
'Cause we love him.
We need that. Yeah. And it's in love. And so, can you read, can you, go through scriptures on your own, kind of do your own thing? Yes. But I don't, the whole growth thing, I just, it's hard to see how you could grow because you don't have, because you're not going to challenge yourself further than what, you're comfortable with. And that's why you need people.
Right. What was some of the modern, because it's becoming, the reason I brought it up is because it's becoming an increasingly popular sentiment that okay, I am a Christian. I don't need the church thing. I don't like institutional religion. There's all that. We've all heard those statements or cliches or what have you. But the more you do, I would maintain that the more there's I would maintain. I said it. And I'll never be able to say it free.
I didn't even catch it.
But we're on the edge of our seats. That's when you're getting ready to make the big point.
That when you go to the New Testament, I just can't find that. And I used to buy it because I believed it kind of. But am I wrong? I mean, is it present there? What do you see as far as what the church is in the New Testament?
Well, I think the Bible talks so much about loving one another. And you did that whole series where we had the whole list of the one another's in the Bible. Yeah. There's just an assumption there that you are doing life with other people, that there are others that you're going to have to get along with. It doesn't say if you ever are around one another. I mean, it just is. It's in the fabric of it. It's assumed.
Mm-hmm. Well, what if I say I'm hanging out with my friends? We meet at Starbucks on a Thursday morning, and there you go. There's my church. I'm home. Is there anything?
I mean, I think
silence. Good point.
No, besides Thomas getting ready to order something.
Also to note, like on these theological matters, I'm not as qualified as most of the other people. So, I'll just throw that out there too. Qualified. All of it is just my opinion and my 34 years of existence and wisdom. So
I think it's one of those things, especially as culture continues to change. I think we have to be honest that the church, we talked about this last week in a little bit of episode 1, that sometimes the church has had its issues where people are burned from it and they don't want to be involved with something where they feel like, especially there's a younger generation, this next generation coming up, and they're looking for ways to not be associated with anything, but yet more focusing on people. And I think ultimately that's what the church wants to do.
Right.
But sometimes it doesn't always come off that way, or if one bad thing happens, everyone is kind of held accountable to that, which is good and bad, I guess. I mean, that's part of it. But so I think your question, if I go to Starbucks with people and you guys are hanging out, I mean, I think there's something that can start from that, but at some point that can't continue to be everything for you.
Yeah. Does that meet the definition of the church in the New Testament? Is it just from you don't have to be educated in theology, just answer what's your instinct as far as your...
Oh, were you saying something?
Well, I have something I'll say after. I want to hear what you have to say, Thomas.
Well, I mean, my thought is not necessarily even from the New Testament per se, but what you you had a quote that said something of I remember the second half of it that
if you would have heard it on Sunday, you would remember.
Well, no,
it's been a long time since you heard it.
But it was about theology, like that the response is gratitude, but the
it was a quote from a theologian where he said in Christianity, religion is grace and ethics is gratitude.
Yes, religion is grace, ethics is gratitude. Yes, and for me, there's not a lot of, it's a major part of it is the worship. So that group that's meeting at Starbucks, it's where does it cross from like a Bible study to church is like, I think at some point we have to respond. And it's like, are you going to respond, now if they bust out guitars and start singing songs right there in the, Starbucks lobby? I mean, it's, I don't know, but it's one of those things where it's like, I think you have to be intentional too, because it's, if you meet up and it's like, last time we just talked about football the whole time, but this time we'll really talk about church. It's,
So an element of church is bringing the intentionality behind things.
Yes, that being intentional in having, because if you don't have that time of, at least for me, like the worship is very important in that it's like you're absorbing what God has to say to you, and then you get like we were talking about response earlier. The response is very important. I give it out in worship. I give it out in, what I, kind of that action. Right. I feel like I'm getting a little jumbled, but in a way, that's some of my thoughts swirling on that. Sorry.
So
this is how my brain works, by the way.
That is a great snapshot of every conversation with Thomas.
That's right.
That's why he's a creative.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And what we love about you.
That's why he keeps addressing the camera.
I'm like, squirrel. I know, I keep looking at the camera. I'm not supposed to.
True story.
I should know what to do.
The first episode, it was more of an argument with Thomas trying to get the video to look right. I'm like, this is a podcast. We want to show the video, but I want the audio to sound good.
I know.
Thomas wants the video to sound
I can't turn it off. I'm sorry.
So 2 things from that. One is more of a vulnerable moment, and I can share that after. But you were talking more about the New Testament, and I started reading. I don't know why. I just felt like I wanted to start rereading through Romans, and I started Romans 1 and 2 over the weekend, and I was reading Romans 1, and Paul even says, he's like, I can't wait to get back with you, not only to teach you, but to also learn with you. And I thought that was it was a very like reminder that not only the people who are teaching, they want to be a part of it as well. Just because like Bret might be teaching on Sunday morning does not mean that you're not a part of the corporate, worship, experience that we have every Sunday or whatever that is. And so I thought that was just a good reminder that it is kind of that model that we have set up to be together, because and then to the vulnerable side of it, there are some weekends where, like, even before I was part of One Life Church staff, that I would have this mindset of like, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to get out of the house. I don't want to see anyone. But immediately, as soon as I'd walk through the doors and see someone at West, because that's where I attend most of the time, it was almost like all of those walls were just gone. And it's like, I can't imagine not having that aspect of saying, hey, we're all kind of in the same place together. We're all responding in the same way. We're all praying together. We're all hearing the same message. And then taking that and going and doing it kind of as the church, is not just on Sunday morning, but being the church in our communities. So I don't think that sitting around just once a week at Starbucks would fulfill me by any means.
Yeah, and it doesn't get to the principle, but it's important to me for a couple of reasons. One is because I remember I had an argument with my mother-in-law, which is not a very good thing to do, just for the record. You just kind of leave that alone. But over church attendance, and I was going to school to be a pastor, and I was arguing that it really wasn't necessary, and she was arguing that it was. And you can see who won that in the end, And so, but I had that, and so, but I always wondered about that question: is it or isn't it? I don't want anybody to do something because they don't have a reason for it. And so, but over time, I just discovered that the New Testament assumes it as a part of its fabric. We debate that all the time. Well, you don't have to go to church, and that's why I said be a part of a church, not go to church. It's a different discussion. But like you said, Paul assumed that within his writing. He said, I'm coming to teach you. We're going to teach one another. He's talking to a community of people. Well, there it is. So I kind of resist this idea that I'm just sitting it's just me and my Bible and God and nature or whatever else. But you're reading a document that has it as a part of its fundamental fabric. It doesn't just occasionally say, be sure you do this or something like that. So you look like you're burning up with ideas there, Natalie.
I don't know. The only thing I was thinking in that, the part of the church where Jesus commanded us to make disciples. And so if it's just you and your Bible and God and nature, that's fantastic. But are you discipling the squirrels out there? I mean, a part of our responsibility is to disciple one another. And I don't think that necessarily has to happen in the church, but it's through that gathering of the community of people who believe the same thing I believe that I form relationships with people that we can then begin to disciple one another.
That's a really good point. And I always think about it. I always think about it from a challenging way too, because I have my tendencies, and even when I'm by myself and go to read the Bible, I will tend towards, whatever kind of formula I had come up with years ago. It's like, I read a little bit from the Old Testament, a little bit from the New Testament, or whatever it is. And I may get stuck in these ways. But coming to church, there may be a verse that's brought up that's not going to be, that myself I wouldn't have gone there, or wouldn't have would have skipped over it and been like, oh, this is too hard or too weird, or I don't understand it, so I'm not going to read about that. But then when you get presented with these challenges of what the message is, and it pushes you. It makes you, I've had many moments where it's been like, oh man, I've never heard that talked about, and I wouldn't have read it on my own,
right,
and then you get to go to lunch with people after church and discuss it, or what,
it's part of the process.
Hey, and there's food. That's with the table again, with food.
Yeah, it's vital because this concept of the body of Christ, of being a part of a local body. But I think we miss out on Jesus wants to express himself through one person to another. I think we want to see Jesus work in our lives, but I think one of the most overlooked ways he prefers to do it is through other people, and he's literally doing that. You're each servants of his. You have his Spirit within you, and so you theoretically are supposed to be kind of bringing something to my life that I can't bring to myself from Christ, and hopefully I do the same thing, and that's where it's kind of mutually supposed to be going. If you deprive yourself of that, you're depriving yourself of an actual encounter with the Lord, is kind of how it works. even though we all don't do it very well, probably. So you agree with that, Sarah?
No,
I saw you thinking.
Would you say that Bret doesn't do it very well? I think that was what he was actually asking.
That's right.
He does a great job.
He's just trying to recover from the thing.
He just stopped
does a
looking
great
at the
job
camera.
on the Sunday thing. Yeah. Now, we also brought up this whole concept of brotherly love, and I don't know what you wanted to get to, Sarah, and we were debating whether or not, I think in the culture itself, brotherly love was culturally in the Roman world more like camaraderie. I don't know if they were making the distinction between brotherly and sisterly love, but when you think of sibling type love, it was talking about family loyalty and all that. How's that different from other kinds of loves? Because there's no question there's that family thing in there. How is family love, sibling love different from other kinds of expressions of love that we have, would be my question for those of you who have experienced that.
I think brotherly love, like I have 2 brothers, and it's just fascinating to me that no one has my back more than my brothers. If they seriously, were in a situation where they thought I genuinely needed them, I mean, they would be there in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. But nobody can offend me and infuriate me more than my brothers too. It's this interesting relationship. Right. I love them like crazy, and they drive me crazy. But either way, they're my brothers. They're always going to be my brothers. Right. I don't give myself permission to give up on that relationship. That's not in my list of options.
Right. And do you think it's possible that's what the passage is driving at, and this whole concept of family love is that in the New Testament? And I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but it is interesting to think about, because those of us who have siblings, we know what that feels like, especially as you're growing up and you watch your own kids. You watch them.
I had a big dose of sibling familyness because my youngest sister got married this past weekend.
She did, caused you to miss church.
We heard about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
All roads
so
lead back
busy
there.
showing brotherly love. You didn't show
That's
it.
right. No, but he was acting.
No, I mean, I was a groomsman. I was in the wedding. So
way to go, man.
I was there for a long time.
So is that big dose a good thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
careful.
I know. Why I keep looking at the camera? Sorry. No, thankfully, so I'm the oldest of 2 sisters, and thankfully we all get along pretty well. But we've had seasons of, growing up. My second youngest sister, Maria, and I feel like we were, I don't want to say like arch enemies, but just, teased, fought all the time. And then we got to high school and it kind of evened out, probably because she started dating all my friends. But so I'm like, okay, if I have to hang out with that friend, got to be cool at this or something.
Well, that'll fix it right up.
Yeah. Right. Where was I going? Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
But it is one of those things. Okay, I know the point that I was going to say. So both of my sisters live in Nashville, Tennessee. And I really don't. I know it's okay.
There is a Nashville, Indiana. That's true.
There is. Yeah, there is a Nashville, Indiana. Yeah. And I don't get to see them very often, and I'm not the best at communication. So like we don't chat and talk a lot. But even like this weekend, like my sister Maria and her family, I've probably only seen them like 2 or 3 times this past year. But it's interesting how, this is my point. It's interesting how with family,
Thomas would maintain. Here it comes.
I would maintain, which I think ties in with the verse as well, is that when I'm with them, it's like there has been no time that has passed. And it's like, I don't have to say, hey, sorry, I only saw you, one time last year. It's like I don't feel obligated because I know, I don't feel obligated to, I can explain that. I don't feel obligated to like wrap anything pretty because I know that they love me. Even if I was
so you're walking in a built-in love for you, value for you.
Like
you don't have to reestablish all that.
And any times that I have tried, like, felt like I needed to apologize for anything, they've always been like, Thomas, there's no need for that. You're my brother. It's fine. It's okay. So it's like, it's this extra layer of, and maybe that's what they were intending with that, kind of early church thing. Like, that's how we should be in the church, is like this thing of like, we're going to offend each other because I've offended my sisters and they have offended me, but, you get through it, and it.
Yeah, there's a
continue.
built-in. The idea is to have, because studies have shown that human beings thrive in sort of a pre-accepting environment, where you go where you belong, you know where you belong. It's already built into the process. Yeah. When I walk to a Nicholson family reunion, I have a place just by the virtue of the fact that I happen to be a Nicholson, and everybody's there. I've grown up with these people; they're all there, and I have this built-in love that I'm receiving from them. And in that environment, I can learn, I can grow, I can develop, and all that kind of thing. So and you don't have to go back and keep reviewing things and try to re-earn their approval. Because as far as earning their approval, that was gone a long time ago. They're just like, hey, we're family here.
Or whether it be like uncles or whatever, they'll come up and hey,
And so I one of the things that we wanted to talk about was that we talked about as a staff, because I also said that brotherly love is rooted in family identity, not personal affinity. And what that was getting at is this idea that the relationship is based on the family itself. But that also, to me, it was a pressure off. And if you ask about what I wish I would have said, I wish I could have explored that more. It takes the pressure off because the church is filled with people I'm supposed to be loving, but they're very, very different from me. And then not everybody I have affinity with automatic. And I think people struggle with that. So did that have that effect on you? Or did you think about that at all? Or at that point, not you, Thomas, because you weren't there, but anybody else, did you have that pressure off feel?
Go ahead.
So I immediately, when you just said that, I thought about me and my sister. And I would say we're like best friends, but if you put our likes and our interests side by side, she hates the outdoors. She was looking for a house with the smallest yard she could possibly find. She would never leave the house without makeup. And that's the polar opposite of me. I love the outdoors. I like to fish. I live in the middle of the woods. My sister hates bugs. Okay, I'm not that big a fan of bugs, but I do live among them now. Right. So, but we're still great friends. Even though we don't have interests that line up, we still can get along great and have a lot in common and a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and maybe the challenge is to give people the chance to do that. I think we come into a church and we're kind of looking for who else is like me, which is very automatic and understandable. But if brotherly love is something that's going to expand me out, that I might be willing to experiment anyway with, and I might find that I don't have anything in common with this person except the fact that we're in the same family and we're in Christ, and that can be the thing that joins us. Which, by the way, if you've never traveled internationally, it's kind of a little aside. That's one of the magical things that happens to you, though. When you meet someone from a very foreign environment that culturally and ethnically and everything else, they're very different from you. When you find out you're both believers, there is this kind of cool thing that happens that you unite instantly, and it tears down a lot of those walls. And I think that's kind of what the church is supposed to be, and maybe what he's going for with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple more things we want to get to before we close up. But I think something you said kind of was trying to get to what I'm trying to say earlier, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't help you at all.
No, you guys all said things that really made me start thinking. And something Bret you had said was that when you go to reunion, like you immediately have a place. I think honestly, that's kind of where it is. Like the lying is that you belong. Like there's just that feeling that everybody wants to feel like they belong. And when you talk about brotherly love or this idea, we talk about being siblings or someone in your family, you immediately feel like you belong. Like it's just something like, I'm one of those people, if I show up someplace and I don't know why I'm supposed to be there or where I'm supposed to go, I freak out. But like if I know that I belong there, that I have a place there, that I have a purpose to be there, I'm completely confident walking in and I go do it. Yeah. And I think that a lot of times that's the difference, is that there are people in our lives that we almost don't, if we don't show them that brotherly love, they don't feel like they belong. We don't feel like they belong, and it's awkward.
Yeah, and God's automatic, ideal design for a family is that every single child born into the world has an automatic place to belong, which we all know that's been broken by the fall and sin and everything else. But the church is supposed to be that you have a place to belong. When you become a believer, just the fact that you're there at a family thing, you don't have to have accomplished this, that, or the other thing or whatever. You're in the club because it's running in your blood. And, I think there is something to that. And that takes the pressure off in a lot of ways. What was the other thing you said finally figured out you wanted to talk about?
No, that was it. But I
that
said
was
there
it.
were, there were
never
two
mind.
more
Okay.
things that we need to talk about.
Oh,
though,
two more.
before,
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
Yeah, before
Right. Well, you better do that now,
Yeah.
'cause we're-
So one, kind of going back to week 1 of the series, and the idea was I am Mephibosheth, which is still fun to say after 3 weeks.
I can't say it.
You want to try?
Mephibosheth.
Good try.
Someone in the car on a trip I was on yesterday said, I am, I can't say it either, Mephibosheth. And my husband said, what kind of chef?
But that was such I think a really, I don't know, it was just an amazing way to hear the gospel in a completely different way that I think a lot of us maybe have heard the story, but just for some reason did not see that. And I know you even said this should be on a shirt. So Larry, Tammy, and Deanna May made shirts yesterday, wore them to Wes, that says, I am Mephibosheth. I have a picture. And if you're listening or watching, you can go find that on the One Life Network, social media, Facebook,
Yeah. You were saying it
and
should be a t-shirt.
Instagram.
Yeah.
That'll be posted up there for you to check out. But yeah, they actually wore it to us, and they wore them, and it had such an impact on them. Like, we're making shirts.
All right. Wow, that's amazing. Did
That
they have
may-
people come up to them wanting to know where they could get them?
They-
Wonder about the marketing of that.
That
Yeah.
May family, am I right? They're amazing.
Yeah. Larry's one of our elders here at One Life, so
Great
I'm
people.
going to make sure I hit that. But then one thing we have to talk about before we close up is you went to a Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah.
I did. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah.
And so maybe this will be the question as we end. Every week we want to ask Bret a question, which you can email in and give us any feedback or any questions you want to ask at podcast@onelifechurch.org. And also any messages that we've talked about, you can always find those at onelifechurch.org or on the One Life app. But Taylor Swift, how many times have you seen Taylor Swift?
That was number 4, and I said that publicly. And I openly acknowledge that this will divide the room, and those who respect me more as a result, and those who respect me less. I get that. I'm there. One
Natalie's
person
giving
in
a
the
thumbs
room
down.
respect me less.
Being
Four times. I've
being
seen it
a
4 times.
production
I
guy,
have.
though, I heard you say the production is
Yeah, I don't
off
care who
the
you are.
charts.
Yeah,
amazing.
that's right. You can say what you want. I personally
I'd like
believe
to
she is
see
a
it,
good
yeah.
songwriter. That's another thing that will
Yeah.
take my respect levels down. That's okay. And we have some personal history with our girls, with her, and all that sort of stuff. But the production is absolutely off the charts. It's like that's something I've never seen before. It was incredible.
Do you ever find yourself in the car listening to Taylor Swift by yourself?
By myself, have I
Yeah.
ever done that? I'm trying to think. Not recently. I'm not a big fan of I think I may have at least once or twice because I have a few songs out there. My girls make fun of me because Back to December is one of my favorite songs. And I've talked about, yelling it out as a request, the one lone guy in the room saying, Back to December, or I like Blank Space, and I like, there's another one I like that I forget the name of it. But I think I have. I'm not real sure. But I definitely have with my girls. So that was always a good time.
Well, and you get mad props for that because I have a feeling that the only reason you're even interested in Taylor Swift is because of your girls and a thing that you could hang out with them. So you get mad
but that's not
props for
solely
that.
it. They know me well enough to know if there was something they were into that I didn't respect or like, I wouldn't do it with them. But I had to at least find something, and I think she's a good songwriter. I think she did. I think she is. And again, that's debatable by some people, but she knows how to write a melody. So sorry.
I'll tell you,
I agree. Yeah.
She can write a melody. She can.
I love a lot of her music in general, but there's one song that someone played for me one time, and I can't listen to it still to the day without getting a little misty-eyed.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Don't Ever Grow Up song. Do you know that song?
Oh, I don't ever grow up. I feel like I have seen it.
You need
Is
a
it the
good
one
cry.
about the kid that...
Yeah, like just stay little, darling, don't ever
I
grow
think I
up.
have
Like,
that. And All Too Well. That's the one I was trying to think of a while ago, too. All
I'll
Too
get you,
Well.
Natalie.
That's right.
Do you know
the
any of
Taylor
this,
Swift?
Natalie?
That's
I
right.
don't know any of
All
this.
Too Well is a great song.
No, I
But she
don't
did
know
write
what I've
maybe
heard.
I'm thinking the wrong way. She did write a song about a friend that had a child that passed away as
Oh,
a
I
child.
haven't heard that.
And it's really, really well done. Yeah.
This one's
But
about
this
like
is-
a parent going through like telling their child not to grow up, and like the story of them when you actually like leave them and they go off.
Oh, wow. I
by
don't need to listen to
themselves
that.
and,
Yeah,
like,
it's still a soft spot for me. Ugh, that'd be rough. Yeah, that's
So,
right.
anyway,
Thanks for that, Sarah.
yeah. You want a good cry? You can go listen to that. Brett, can you give us kind of a little bit of a teaser what this Sunday kind of is going to be?
This Sunday's going to be about humility. The next place in Romans 12, it says, devote yourselves to brotherly love, or whatever it is. It says,
Devote yourself to each other and brotherly
each
love.
other in brotherly love. Yeah, right. And then, and outdo one another in honor. And so it's this just about humility. How do you honor one another? And so a lot of misunderstandings around what humility is versus what it isn't. And I've seen a lot of really good studies on that. So it's a cool subject to really, how do you view others as more important than yourself, and how do you show that? So I think it'll be useful and helpful in both family life and otherwise.
Cool.
I look forward
There you
to
go.
that.
Well, thank you guys for hanging out today. It's been fun.
It has. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, you guys can find any of that information at onelifechurch.org. And any questions or feedback you want to give us at podcast@onelifechurch.org. And we will see you at episode 4.
Amen.
Wow, that went by fast, Philip.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the One Life Church podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Inman. The One Life Church podcast is produced by me and Thomas Bernardin. Music by Ben Brock and Micah Robertson. To find out more about One Life Church, you can visit onelifechurch.org. Or to contact us directly at the podcast, just email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org.